Welcome to Origin Stories. I'm RD.
I'm Parrot.
We're telling stories behind the digital art revolution
Each week we interview top artists.
and live stream with the community.
Let's go. Today is tomorrow's origin story.
Coldie, welcome to Origin Stories.
Roger, how are you, dude?
Doing well, man. Doing
Good.
well. I feel like it's a great moment. Been talking about this for a little while. Not too far from, I'm sure we'll get to this, but I'd like to honor it through the beginning of this origin story, not too far from the passing of a great friend and great artist, Alotta Money. I think that's timely as well, but we can get to that a little bit later because your paths intersect. In fact, we were just talking about that off recording. Let's focus on you for starters and for most of this. And the big question, Coldie, is what is your origin story?
My origin story is rooted in the road less taken, and I think a lot of us can feel that road. And I wasn't early on like quote unquote like artistic per se. I wasn't prolific as a 4-year-old drawing things. And it's funny because I asked my mom recently, she was going through some save boxes and she's like, do you want any of this crap? And I was like, do you have any like kid art I did from school? And she's like, no, like you really didn't. Like, no, I don't have anything. Like, oh, okay, I guess nothing. You hit the standard for the fridge or whatever. But what really started getting me into art was in high school. I went to a small school in Northern California in the foothills. Just you would look at it and be like, yeah, just like another school. I was in this time and place with the group of like, there were like 4 years of classes that were just dynamite. And since then, like I've talked to the teachers and they're always like, you guys were like we had that vibe, right? And it was everywhere. It was sports, athletics, sports, smarts, creativity. And part of that was my longtime friend, Wade Wolf, bless you, Wade. He started a class called Thunderpaw Multimedia. Okay. We're getting freshmen in high school all the way up through seniors. And it's actually funny. I was talking with one of my old Thunderpaw buddies last night about this. We were live streaming basketball games from our little gym down to Sacramento. We're like 15 years old. Like we're doing these things that were putting us in a place to succeed later. We're learning these real world tools. I came in there wanting to do, I was on the basketball team and I wanted to get into graphic design and layout. I wasn't really a film guy. They had a lot of amazing film people. One of them is a DP. He did like I'm on a Boat. You remember the kind of the joke, Andy Samberg?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
definitely remember that.
He shot all that shit. Like we got like fucking really good talent and we're all like 16 or 17. So I roll in there and I'm making the game programs, when you go to the games, got little rosters and maybe a little story. So that was my class job, was do these for every game. And this is where my hustle and keeping the eye on the prize and like getting it done started. Because I would be, let's say the tip off was at 7 o'clock. From like 5:30 to like 6:22 or whatever the last minute I had, I was printing, stapling, getting that shit done, right? Literally with my jersey on. And then I would run over to the gym and get ready and go, right? So looking back, like that was exactly this in a different fractal, right? Where you gotta innovate, you gotta do your shit, you gotta experiment, and then you gotta go. So I think that's the genesis of me as a creative soul and getting my chops up and doing graphic design.
Do you have any game programs kicking around?
Shit. Not right here. No.
But you do.
I absolutely do. And I know where they're at. I just don't think I have them right here. But that's funny. I'll post those.
That'd be amazing, man.
Yeah, and it's funny. I did the school had like just a little art show, you know, like I don't know what the reason was, but it was like whatever. So I did a portrait of a guy I know in class, and so I took the pictures and I did this. I'll have to post this one too. It's the most basic like effect in the background, but what I did, it was total full circle, was I took his ear and I enlarged it like 3 times, and it was like it was literally like a decentralized move from this portrait series. And I saw it like maybe a year ago, and I was like, holy shit, like talking about things coming around. And it was just, that was the start of me looking at people and life in a surrealistic way, right? That was just the first thing. Is like, well, why does his ear have to be normal? And big thought for me at the time, you know. So yeah, high school is awesome. Like I said, so many talented people. We had like an early Uber. One of my best buddies, Matt, was early Uber, and now he's at Lime, killing it with design. There's just so many talented people that came out of this little school, and that was really the start of it. And from there, I went down to art school in Southern California at Cal Poly Pomona, which isn't known for their art department. I mean, but it was perfect. I had adjunct teachers who were doing their shit in LA, like doing really good stuff, and they needed to pick up some extra money or something, so they'd moonlight and come out and teach a class. I got both my jobs out of school. I was working, before I finished, I was at IKEA, their in-house designer. So I was like in charge of the graphics for the flow of the store, and like the big entry graphics. And that was pretty thrilling to be like, 23 or whatever the fuck I was, like doing that. And then out of another teacher through Cal Poly got me an interview at LA Weekly, which was really quite funny because I was like wrapped up in finals, or there was a bunch of shit going on, I don't know. And I was in some type of mood. Like I was just like, like I'm so buried, like, whatever. So she's like, hey, I think they all called me Coldie at that point too. They're like, hey, there's my boyfriend is the lead designer at LA Weekly, and they need like a new designer, and I think you would be a good fit. I was like, oh yeah, I got a job, I'm at IKEA, I'm cool. And I left, and I literally drove home like an hour, and the whole time as I started driving, my intuition was burning. It was fucking burning, and I felt like I was like almost getting sick. I was like, what did I just do? Like I literally turned down a job interview, if nothing less. So I turned back and I drove another hour back right away. And I busted into her 3D graphics class that was like silent. You don't fucking talk in her class. And it's a dark room, and she's teaching. It's the real deal. I bust in, Nas, like Nas. She looks at me like, what the fuck are you, like, you're in the middle of my class right now. And I said, I'm very sorry. We need to talk about that thing that we were talking about. And she's like, okay. And I just left. Right. So this is such a good story. Okay. So I call in sick, the classic thing you do, like when you get a new job, you're like, not feeling well on a Tuesday. So I drove up from Orange County to it was on Sunset Boulevard in LA. Awful. Actually, the traffic probably wasn't bad at that point. Cruised up there. I had my portfolio back in the day. I see it back there, my portfolio case.
I feel like you have everything back there. You have the game programs back there.
You like honor some things right now. So back a long time ago, you used to have to carry these things around. Portfolio cases. You'd have to print it out. You'd mount it on blackboard. You have to glue the shit perfectly. Everything has to be T-squared aligned, because when you go to a job, that's exactly what they're looking at. And so I walk in there nervous as shit, like panic attack, sure, I'm sweating balls, just like, hi, I'm here for the interview. The guy at the front desk buzzes back to the guy who's supposed to interview me. And he's like, okay, yep, I'll let him know. Click. He's like, he can't see you. He's too busy. He's too.
No.
And I'm like, at that point, super meek, like very shy, like, oh, like the panic attack doubled. And I was like, okay. So I left and I drove home, and I was like, I felt rejected without even interviewing. I didn't like, so I called her, my boss or my professor Nas, and I was like, yeah, they said I couldn't like talk to him. And she's like, oh no, they didn't. No, 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 no. So I got like 3 phone calls that night. You know, her boyfriend, he's like, oh no, no, like please come back. Like, they're like, can you come back tomorrow? I was like, no, I can't. I just called in sick at my job. Like, we gotta play this. Like, no, fuck you. Like, so like, let's do it on Friday. I don't know, pretend I'm sick again. So went up there. We sat in a circle and I'm pulling out my boards, and we were just like hanging out, just like 3 people on the ground. And it was the weirdest design interview ever. And then right after that, he's like, okay, see that the computer over there? Okay, here's the article and 2 pictures. It's going to run in the newspaper. Go do something. Just go. He's like, you can have as much time as you have some time, but I'm gonna see what you can do. I was like, ooh, okay. So, jump into the fire, do something. And I think I kind of remember what I did, but it was cool enough. On the spot, I pulled something out and I got the job. And coming out of art school and being able to do covers, at the time the readership was over 100,000 a week. So I was doing covers, and you walk out to go to Starbucks and you fucking open the thing and your shit is there, right? It was a very awesome feeling to be in the culture. And that was definitely the dream job. It's the ones that don't pay shit, but you not only learn, but you network, you get into the culture. I've talked about Shelley Leopold many, many times. She was my boss at LA Weekly. And we've since done the Kitty Bungalow shows together, the cat charities. So that's where we met. And Shelley is just awesome. Like, one day I was just doing my design thing in my little cubicle, and she comes over and she's like, hey, you're going to take the afternoon off. Here's the address. Go. And I was like, what's going on? Like, do you need me to go shoot pictures for an article? Or, well, like, what's going on? It's like, oh no, it's a pop-up Banksy show that no one knows about. So you can go and just walk in and just own it, and no one's gonna give a shit. So I did that. I walked in there, and there's people walking around with boxes, setting up shit. I just started walking around like I was fucking owning the place, and there was no one in there. It was like the day or 2 before they leaked it, and I was like just chilling and looking at these Banksies, like as close as I wanted to. Like, there was no rules. And Macaulay Culkin was like looking at art next to me. It was the weirdest fucking thing, but beautiful, right? That's what those years in LA brought me, was intense street culture. Yeah, so many awesome things from that. And from there, that's where I used to go to galleries, art walks all the time, and I could barely afford the subway ticket to get there. But I would play collector. I would put on my collector hat, and I would walk around these galleries and just start training my eye, right? Like, if I was going to collect 2 pieces, out of this gallery, pick them, right? So I would go through and I would just admire everything. There'd be a couple like, that's sick as shit. That's sick as shit. So I mentally like collected those, like, okay, you guys are awesome. Never had a means to be a collector, but that's how I started getting that acuity for on the spot, just sussing out what like tick the boxes for me.
And
So,
I'm not hitting fast forward now, but it's no surprise that you've become quite a large crypto art collector.
yeah, absolutely. It was absolutely built on those days of aesthetic discernment, where it's like, this, any art can mean something to 1,000 different meanings to everybody. What does it do to me? And through that, you're not collecting for anybody else, but if your taste is stylized and curated in such a way, then you start to have a collection without even really like trying to have a collection. You just, now looking back, because I've been collecting for 3 years, like NFTs, it's crazy how much of it is pretty congruent and makes sense together. Like, I was like, wow, I really, and it's funny because I have little phases. Like, it's funny, I'll be scrolling through and there's like a phase where like all these like bright like yellows and like bright blues, and like sometimes it's color, sometimes it's photography. I love a lot of photography these days. But yeah, the LA weekly days really were like the genesis of me becoming an artist. And we can segue quite beautifully. So there's another thing. I love Shelly, and Shelly challenged my soul on a project. Okay. I think it was, I think it was, I forget what the project was, but I told her that I was always the designer, and I would get artwork from Shepard Fairey. I would get artwork from Dabs Mila. I would get these awesome LA artists that she knew. Like, she'd say, hey, we need key art for the artwork. Just do a bunch of pieces. Ryan's awesome at collaging. So give me a bunch of pieces. We'll throw it to him and he'll make it work. Right. Mm-hmm. Which was totally fun. Right. And one of the projects, when we were talking about, the key art, and if people don't know, key art's like the base level creative assets for it. Right. So I was like, hey, Shelly, like, I want to do, like, I want to do the key art for this. And she's like, you're a designer. You're not an artist. I was like, okay. And there wasn't any fallacy to that. I had not made any art. Mm-hmm. So fair enough. It was definitely a little gut check. And she was probably right. If I did it, it probably would not have come out as polished as getting a true illustrator to draw the assets, right? So she was correct. But that was one of like the very key moments in my life where it was like, it's like, oh yeah. It's almost like, oh, okay, game on, right? And it lit a fire inside my soul that I have never since replicated. And it's still, even though we are best friends, I talk to Shelly all the time, there's such a love for that challenge. And I don't know if she was doing it on purpose or not, but it worked. And I took that and I just said, what can I do? Like, and it was true. Like, well, what art would I make? So at the time I was into like UFOs and like outer space and, stuff like that. And I actually brought my very, very first piece. And I started designing it when I was living in LA, because I remember showing it to one of my photography friends down there just to get his feedback and get his 2 cents on it. And it's funny because it took a while to fine tune this piece into something that was art. It took me a while. So in that transition time, I had left LA and moved back up to where I'm at now in NorCal, and living in my parents' basement, the classic story, right? Literally in the basement. And it was an open space. So I had all these folding tables set up. It was my live art studio. And I started creating, and it was coming out. I had no idea what I was like doing, but I started. So I'll show you the first one. Okay. So this is my first piece, and at 18 by 24, some standardish size. So the process of what I do on these, it's a super labor intensive process called a gel transfer. And a gel transfer, the process of it is you print out an image on an inkjet and you invert it, you mirror it, so it's backwards. Mm-hmm. You cover the piece of paper with a bunch of gel medium, like Mod Podge, or there's a certain like gel medium you use, and you create a little thickness on it, okay? Then you transfer that, you basically glue that onto the canvas and let it dry. And you got to burnish that shit down, make sure it's all on there, let it dry. Then you take a sponge and you slow as fuckly burnish off the paper so that all that's left is, this is just gel that the ink soaked into. So dude, to do one of these, first of all, it's impossible to do it without, like, you can see there's like this part here, totally flaked out. Like there was a bubble and I rubbed too hard and it just went gone, right? You can't fix it. There's no fixing. So I, right away, you start looking at this thing and you have to come to terms with the reality of what's in front of you. You know, if I've already spent probably at that point 30 hours burnishing and this thing flakes off, and then you're kind of held with this, is this okay? Is this what my intention, or do I start over? And I kept going because it was my first one. I'm like, fuck it, dude, I just gotta get something done. And I don't know how it came out as well as it did. It was total first time luck, because I got a bunch more back there that didn't come out as clean, and I gold leafed it and it came out good. I don't know. It was the universe. I truly believe it was the universe saying, this is a good thing that you should keep doing. And I'm much that way. I don't look for messages, but I truly feel that sometimes they're sent to you and you have a chance to acknowledge or not. You know, if you don't acknowledge it, who cares? But like if you can see those things, like a little billboard that drives by, you're like, huh, okay, that's what that piece was. And that's my baby. Like that will never be sold.
So that was my question, actually. When you're in that process of creation, your first artwork, and you're thinking about, is this a message? Do I keep going? Is this my intent? Do you have an intent as to, I am creating this for this purpose? Are you creating it just to see if this road is right for you? How are you thinking about it?
I have no purpose for creation. Creation just, like, it just has to come out. Like for me, it's the process of the art making, and it's you know, therapeutic to just like get something out there and have a process and work through, you know, the goods and the bads, and just come up with something. But at no point really with anything I make, unless it's like a commissioned group deal, there's not like a end goal. It's just, it's more or less going down the path and coming up to the stopping point. And that stopping point sometimes is 10 minutes in. That stopping point is sometimes 10 years in, right? And it's discerning the stopping point. And sometimes you restart them, right? But there's checkpoints along the way where I've learned that you got to stop and art direct yourself and critique the fuck out of it and get down to brass tacks, not for what anybody else wants, but for how's it feeling for me? Like, am I enjoying this process? You know, if I'm not, then I should probably change what I'm doing, because that's free time. I'm not going to be doing something shitty in my free time. So those types of things, especially if I'm like not feeling it, it's exciting. It's like, okay, how do we ramp this up? So kind of based off of that project, I can kind of show you the iteration of how I went from, you know, looking at what I was doing and taking it to a different direction, right? So again, on the first one, it was standard, and these are all stereo 3D, which I've always had the passion for. I just fucking love stereo. So like stereoscopic gel transfer, I'm very, very stoked with that one. So, you know, I make another one, and all I know at this point is gel transfer, because I want these things to be respected, not just as graphic design, but as art, right? And that's, especially, these were like 10 years old. Very hard to get into a gallery show without something being on canvas. Like straight up, like a way harder sell, you know. Or like you could do a print, but to me, that's not hitting the mark, right? So that's where all this, and I learned this process at Cal Poly, was this gel transfer. So I'm going to talk about the one before this, but so what I started doing was blowtorching the art, and it was partially done because another piece right around this time majorly got messed up. We're talking the whole like upper 30-40% total fail, like total fail. So much so that I took the canvas, and I remember the trash can I set it in. It was trash, and I was done, right? And I looked at that canvas, and it probably sat in that trash can for maybe 5 minutes. You know, it sat there. It was like we were having a conversation, and he's like, "Are you done?" And I said at first, "Yep, I failed." And he's like, "Did you? Did you fail?" "Yep, totally failed. That last one came out way better." And then the problem solver in me jumped in there, and he's like, because I literally had spent probably 40 or 50 hours burnishing, so it was an ROI on time. I'm like, am I really going to throw away this 50 hours of time? That sounds stupid. So I pulled the canvas out, and I don't know where it came from. I didn't think about it for a while. I was like, I need to blowtorch this thing. I need to cut the part out and burn it. I don't know where that came from. I had never seen art that was burnt. I had never thought about burning shit, but I did it. And that piece sold in a gallery, my local gallery, and it blew me away. And when they called me and they're like, "Your piece sold," I was like, "What?" Like, because in my head, like, that was in a trash can 2 months ago. And I sold it for $600. I got a check for, I think, $420 I thought was just rad. I got a check for $420, and I was stoked. Like, oh my God, a piece of art. I got paid. I didn't want to get paid. It just hung somewhere, and someone decided they wanted to take it home. So I live in such a small town that I knew who the buyer was through my mom's friend. Small town shit. And she lives in the Bay, and I've talked to her a little bit, just thanking her. And she's like, "Yeah, it's just the weirdest thing. I love it. It's just burnt, and it's a cool little piece." And I was like, "Dude, I'm so happy that you have that thing." And it's funny, like a year ago, my mom was like, "Oh, hey, so-and-so is going to go see her sister, like the one who has the art. Like, do you want to pass any messages or anything?" And I was like, I need to talk to this lady. Like, like, all bragging aside, like, do not like give that to the Goodwill. Like, if thank you for buying my art. Like, the early patrons are really the ones that matter. And she really was my earliest patron. And that piece has such immense meaning to me. And I had to like urgently let her know, like, that thing is so important to me and what's come from it, that like, treat it well. And if you ever get sick of it, let me know, And
I really,
like, she's like, "Wow, that's like really rad." So, yeah. So, I just started burning other stuff, so I started burning this with the gold leaf, and this one got juried into a national juried show, by a really well-known art critic, Matt Gleason. He runs it's called Coagula Art Journal, and it's been around for probably 30 years. And he's like, he's a classic, art critic, but like with a solid spin. He's not just a shit talker. So I was just so stoked that I got juried in by this guy. So these are all little things that were just like, keep going, just keep going. It's just like the check parts. Like, I didn't sell any of that stuff. I didn't care. Like, but I can tell you how proud I was to walk into that gallery and see that on the wall. I was like, those are the good feels, and I didn't care if anybody looked at it. It was just like, we did it. That little journey succeeded. And kind of soon thereafter, probably within a year or so, and if I made one of those, if I was on a production schedule, let's say I was trying to crank them out, we're talking a couple months, so I might be able to do 4 or 5 in a year if I did, but these are more like once every 6 months. So
Real quick, if I could stop you there, what fascinates me so much is your perspective that early, right? How you're treating your artworks that early when they do take that long, where you're creating the first one, you're saying there is no intent here. I have a fire burning based on what Shelley told me, and now I want to take my crack at it. But then what you produce, you're saying to yourself, I'm never selling this. Like, this is mine. This is mine. Then you have the epiphany in the trash can, right? Sell that artwork, but you immediately have the presence of mind to go to your patron and say, like, hey, you have a change of heart here, give me a call. Like, don't you dare do anything where this artwork is removed from the world. I really appreciate that. I appreciate that presence of mind.
Yeah, it's funny because I've done it again. I bought my own Genesis NFT back, and I'm not trying to buy that piece back from the lady by any means, but it's I have the art I make. If it doesn't like check the boxes for me as a collector, right? Like, it's kind of twofold. Like, if this thing doesn't stand up good enough to hang on a wall, then it needs to hit that spot. And that's hard to explain until you get down the road and you fucking burned your canvas and you can't go back. Like, you just got to keep going. At a certain point, I feel good about this. And as you know, we can noodle projects forever. There's literally no end to any graphic design or any art piece. You could keep going forever. But the other skill is knowing when to stop and make a new one, right? Because I'm all about iterations too. So these ones are done. They got me to being able to go to Rare Art Labs. And when I went there, it was in 2018. The stuff that I was making, here, so back again, I was into like outer space a lot, and a lot of that was just I needed a subject matter to make art to, like I just needed a theme, and I think it was very cool, but it's funny because like, it's a time and a place for me. So I was doing like little street fairs in Sacramento. Like we wouldn't get into any shows. Me and my cousin Aaron, who made me even think about art. Bless Aaron, awesome guy. We would go to art walks in Sacramento and just busk on the side of the street, literally with a suitcase. I'd pop it open, get my 3D lenticulars, put them on the side of the wall, and we'd like, I don't know, smoke weed and hang out, just like fuck around, and with the same, no one cared. We were just having fun out there. And I was doing these like, this one's called Pyramid on Mars. And I have a version, I'm gonna make some more of them, where this part lights up with LED lights. It fucking pops. And that was an early pre-NFT thing. And that was the first step, actually, a lenticular being digital art, kind of, because you can't, the great thing about these things, they're fake proof. you can't make these. I would love to see somebody do that. Like, it's impossible. So I was making these things. So when I went to Rare Art Labs, I had a catalog, at least, of what I've done until that point, because I didn't have anything else, right? So it's the same as LA Weekly with my box of boards. That was stuff I did in college. So all you can do is show the best of what you got at the time, and have the inner love for yourself that this is as good as you are right now. And you have to use that. I could walk, like, there were plenty of pieces even in my college portfolio that, yeah, they're not great, but I needed 12 pieces for that interview. So you better believe, you kind of stuff them in the middle, and there's a whole talk to all that. You got to work with what you got, right? So that's what I did. And with Rare Art Labs, it was the same thing, where I sent them some stuff. And at the time, it was not hard to get into a marketplace because there just wasn't a demand. And I just got in, and it was very, very easy. And it was freeing because, especially way back then, there was no buyers. There was no nothing. There was no one gave a shit about it. And it allowed me to just create. just create some things, and every single one was an experiment. I did an edition of 10, an edition of 50, I did an edition of 25, different price points, trying to make sense of this thing that was basically the same to me as online dating. Like, you make a profile and you put your stuff out there, and it's the same thing to the universe. You throw it out there and maybe there will be a connection. But if not, it just kind of hedges. You're kind of like putting stuff in different baskets.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a basket I did, and it was just for marketing. I was like, well, maybe more people will see my stuff on here. Like, cool. I'm just trying to be out there. Nothing sold, I probably sold pieces to, like, maybe the owners, the guys who ran the company. Like, that was pretty cool. I'll pick that up for $35, or, maybe $100. Well, I don't know. No $100. I sold 2 pieces to a guy who was just an awesome dude. I hustled an art show at a very small crypto event in San Francisco in 2018. We're talking real small show, like 2 rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And I hit the guy up, and I was like, hey dude, I'm up the hill. I would love to pack my car full of my shit and give you a free art show. And he was like, what? Really? Like, I was like, well, do you have anything for your guests to look at while they're drinking and networking? He's like, well, no. I was like, sounds like you need me just as much as I need you. And he's like, thank you. Yes, please. Like, he opened up the room. I came down, like, I think it was the morning of. I just fucking ran in there, set up my easels, and it was done. Right. So I had my own art show, and there were some important people that were there because it was so early that the people who sought out this tiny little show were there because they wanted to get in. And one of those people was this guy who bought 2 pieces. It was an NFT version of this one.
Mm-hmm.
And then, is it here? No. Another one is called Underground Energy. It's about underground pyramids that power the earth, obviously. So he was into pyramids and stuff. So he bought one of each of them, and they were $100 each. And there were no sales. The Vitalik, my first Vitalik 3D one, no one touched it the whole time. And at a certain point, Rare Art Labs decided it was a smart business move to change from 8% commissions to 40% commissions, and just let us know, by the way, oh, by the way, as I did not take that one too kindly.
It's a bit of a leap.
Oh yeah. Not even like, let's have a vote, or what do you guys think? It's like, by the way. So I, by the way, rage burned all my shit. So I was like, okay, like, homie, don't play that way. So I did this calculatedly, because I had sold probably at most 1 or 2 of each of these series. Some of them none. The Proof of Work never sold. That's the one that sold at Bonham's.
Mm-hmm.
And the Vitalik never sold. So I burned those, so I had I could remint those. They'd never been sold, right? And the ones that had been sold, I burned all the remaining tokens. I didn't even keep any for myself, which was kind of a dumb move. But I was protecting my collectors from that always, but especially then. So that guy at the show who bought 2 things for $100 each, I think the edition was probably 25 or somewhere around there. Now they're one-of-ones, right? And that's the least I could do, because it was the exact same thing as all these things we're talking about, the early patrons and the support. And I can't tell you how proud I was to sell NFTs in an IRL art show. Like that, those were all just worth it. I was just like, damn, like killing it. You made $200 and it probably cost me $250 for the trip. It was like, great, dude, we won. And, so I fucking rage burned all my shit. And then I got into SuperRare, and that was kind of like a transition time over to those days.
It's an amazing story. I mean, it's a good backstory of so many things you've mentioned thus far along the way, going back to the game programs and then walking it forward to enlarging the ear, and then walking it forward to the comment, Shelley's comment that fired you up.
Yeah.
And walking it forward to how you started walking into galleries before you could afford things, and like that discernment, that collector eye. There are all these genesis elements to your story. I really appreciate how you're walking us forward through this. And then this becomes a really interesting genesis element of you ultimately taking care of your collectors. And, you know, from everything that I've learned about Coldie in the past year and a half plus, I've seen that in present day.
Sure. Yeah. It's all building blocks. And at the same time, these are all experiments too. I don't know what the response will be. I mean, I assumed it was a slam dunk to help my collectors. Like that was an obvious one, but there was no precedent. It wasn't like something that people were doing. I just, again, trusting my gut. Is this the right move?
Trust your intuition.
Absolutely. I wanted you to say it, but like, we'll get to that one. I want to talk about that piece.
Yeah.
But that there's threads in my life that are around things like your intuition and like discernment that I was always testing myself to improve, because I don't think you could master discernment. Like I could tell you 100,000 stories where my discernment was incorrect, right? But that helps you grow, right? So it's all part and parcel for the same growth. And you know, with art especially, you know, I just take chances, calculated risks. Sometimes you win, sometimes you fail. The coolest thing from the Rare Art Labs, I have to say, was Coinbase headquarters. They had some deal with like I think it was mural frames, and Coinbase picked 2 pieces from all of Rare Art Labs to have in their headquarters, and they picked the day we've all been waiting for. This guy, this piece.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they have that in the headquarters, and that's just super sick. Like that was just a little like bonus round thing where cool, like that again, just like keep going. So, you know, SuperRare came around, and I was already minting and I got it. And it's funny if you actually look back at my early works, which I'll pull it up now just so it'll kind of help me a little bit. But I remember that I was concurrently minting on both of them for a little while, and I was just experimenting. Like one of my Johnny Dollar is another quadruple OG in the space, and he made his own smart contract. It's called Artists Unleashed, or I think it was Unleashed. And he's like, "Hey, dude, you know, love your stuff. Would you like to mint on my Artist Unleashed contract?" I was like, "Hell yeah!" You know, like let's do something. So I literally minted this piece on his contract, and it has never sold. I still own this thing. It's Vitalik Buterin variant 3, and I've like told people it exists, you know, like at the same time, I don't really need to sell it, but like it's so funny that it's gone. It's like 3 years old. Yeah, 3 years ago I minted this thing, and like it just is sitting there. It's the archaeology we were talking about off camera. Was sure there are sharks in the waters now, you know, like literally, like the things get, as soon as something is discovered, like plasma bears, which I was like somehow was able to like get into that chaos. Like I was looking at plasma bear pages for like 4 hours one night. We're talking like 200 pages of bear parts, and I don't know what happened, but the universe blessed me, and I got a full set of X copy plasma bears and a foot. I found an X copy foot. You know, it's like I was just going, like I didn't care what the fuck it was, like, and I was like, that has to be an X copy foot. So it's like, so there's sharks, including me. I would consider myself a shark because I have visual acuity.
You were training for that moment.
I've been training. The sniper eye is there, and I miss times. You know, like, I mean, Bored Apes would be an example of not quite seeing ahead enough. and you win some and you lose some. But those were one of them. Are like, hey, those things were like, well, $100 or something at one point. Pretty damn cheap. I don't know where I was going with that, but I think that the sharks in the water, like with this Vitalik piece, it's just sitting on OpenSea. Anybody, like literally anybody could type in Vitalik and Coldie or something. And it would come up. But like I never get offers or anything on it. It's great. It's kind of funny. It's just like, yeah, it's there. It's there.
We're gonna pause this interview. I'll be right back. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to go bid on your piece.
Okay.
You're like, do what you got to do, dude.
Yeah, okay. That would be so funny. So yeah, like I have that piece I never sold. And during that time, so I did that one piece, and then I was on SuperRare because Rare Art Labs, that whole thing. I'm not going back there.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually did for my t-shirt project, which we should also talk about. Then I just started creating on SuperRare, and I did my proof of works. I started getting into, I'm really into like variants because I wanted to do this portrait series, but there was no way to just do one and be done. It just didn't make any creative sense to me, because things come up and then you're like, how do you get all your thoughts into like one Vitalik? That sounded like awful decision. So I started doing variants, and it worked out great because some of these variants, actually my Genesis piece is a absolute happy accident that I was, the piece itself is stereoscopic, the red and the blue. And I was in the process of turning layers on and off to export it, or I was in some type of phase where the face was built, but I was doing some process, I forget. And I was turning a bunch of these layers off, and I stopped. And I was like, whoa, I did not plan, but this thing looks sick. Save it, save that, save the JPEG, keep going. And I wouldn't mint it right away. I'd just be like, okay, that's a variant, keep jamming, because like I had a plan in place. But every once in a while, these little things like discernment come up where if you're in the flow, but at the same time, you're also like, check. Like, is it time to stop? Is it time to stop? That whole, art directing yourself and curating kind of this piece. This was one of those things where it was just too cool. And I don't normally design like in that type of color scheme, but it was sick. I was like, okay, that's totally a piece of art. Who's anyone to say like, oh, that was just a process piece? No, absolutely not. That there's a lot to that piece. So, I just started doing variants, and it was very freeing because I think I did, oh shit, maybe 7 Vitaliks or something. And each one was always unique. I would never rehash the same thing. And that was important to me. And kind of learning to play with an asset collection, much like I did at LA Weekly, where I have these pieces that work together. How can you start deconstructing them and playing with them in different ways to be unique, but also have this like continuity to it?
So 7 Vitaliks.
Yeah.
We're progressing on. Take us through, it's quite an extensive journey. I think, what was it, 156? It's trying to get the let me back off here. Your collection is 159. Your creations are 116. But it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing to me. We see a lot of artists who have recently started, and you go to pages and you see 2 or 7 or 11, but someone who has been doing this and really has been paving the way for multi years now. It's fun to see 116. It's a better scrolling experience. You see things evolving, you see those variants evolving, and you start to, go from point A to ultimately point F.
Yep, absolutely. And the beautiful story of early crypto art too, especially me as an artist, I actually felt a little bit looser back then to just do one-off riffs. And that's something that I struggle with so much. And whether that means I make a fake name and I put some shit out, or I have a B-side collection, there's a lot of stuff that I have, like little one-liner art pieces that it's not part of a series, but it's a jam, you know, it's a riff that should be out there. That I was doing that back then just because it was fun. No one was buying shit. And it was a little bit like, not that there's any stakes, but now that I'm like in it and like doing series, I've kind of like boiled down what I release, because it's easier to control, and you know, I can spend more time. It's like less output but higher like quality, I would say. Well, I shouldn't say there's no quality differences, but just a different mentality at like three years in. If I look back to my early ones, I made this piece which I love. It's called Trolling Hard, where
Yes. I honed in on that one today.
oh, it's like we had troll dolls at the house. Like I took a picture of that troll doll and I put the Bitcoin Cash on there, and it was during, these things are all times and places where if you were there at the time of the Bitcoin Cash, like trying to flip Bitcoin, it's the real one, and no one knew, to be quite frank. Like I was hedging. I was like, maybe, I don't know, who am I to say? So that I made that piece just for fun. Like I've never done any other troll art, but I love that one. So there are different experiments I did for ETH San Francisco 2018. Fuck, that was so much fun. I got to see Vitalik talk, which was amazing. I did these posters for the show, I made printed posters, and I was selling those. And then I made 5 NFTs of those, and they're all individually numbered. So I was experimenting with like series numbered prints on SuperRare. It was a free flow time. And it's funny because some of the pieces are just like I did one for a Tesla. There's a light bulb, and like I love it, but like it's just like an ode to Nikola Tesla. It was just like, okay, it was great. But like I was in a phase also where I was trying to like challenge myself to do like design charrettes, where I would like say, hey, you're gonna make a piece tonight, you're gonna mint it. And good challenge, right? Varied results, varied.
I can imagine.
At best. And I would mint them. And I would say the Tesla one would be in that zone where I was like making some stuff, and that one passed the test. I burned some that were up there that after a week or whatever, I was like,
not feeling it,
not hitting it. So I actually probably forget. I don't even know what those were, to be quite honest. I should check the SuperRare burn wallet and see what jewels are in there. But I think that looking at my SuperRare page, it's a chronology of my creativity and just going from one thing to another, learning new tools. And a lot of it for me is like, I'll try my best. I am not like a software savant. You know, I know the processes that get me where I need to go for my styles of art. But at the same time, I don't know Houdini. I don't know 3ds Max, whatever people use. That wasn't my jam since day one. I was a collage artist. I was a Photoshop guy, and I'm kind of okay with that. You know, it lends to what I want to get across. But at a certain point, when I wanted to make my stuff like 3D camera stuff, I literally have mints on here where I would screen record my screen, and I would drag with the mouse off on the side, and it was like performance art because I was literally dragging the mouse and watching how it moved in real time. And I would record like 20 of those just to get the right. There's like a Disneyland ride. You're like, oh, it's left, right, up, down, swish, whatever the fuck. And at a certain point, that's all I knew. So I would tokenize those. I knew that was not an effective model for, doing these long term. So I had to learn After Effects. So, it's fun to look at them where it's like, oh man, he went from GIFs to 3D Photoshop screen record into After Effects. Like that's a progression leap that I had to like take the time. And, luckily we have tutorials everywhere, right? So you just have to try and put a little bit of, time in there to learn it. But then you had this new toolkit, and like that invigorated everything I did. Then it was like the portraits were in After Effects. I did a proof of work Redux, which just because I had these new skills, I could be like, holy shit, I can make a landscape out of this now. It wasn't just a locked perspective. I could, kind of show some sides and have, God, I want to pull that piece up. We haven't talked about Alotta, but it's really interesting. This piece, let me find it here. Proof of work Redux I made, and all of these times when we're making stuff, I was looking at Alotta Money's art, and the guy, talk about genius. And he was doing the same kind of thing with collage, and he had the After Effects animations coming in. It was crisp as shit. And when I made this piece, it was a challenge to myself to try to get somewhere to the quality level of like the things Alotta would do. And this is a direct influence. Like this is like in the 60s when the Beatles and the Beach Boys and the Rolling Stones and Van Morrison and everybody was cranking out their jams, and they were listening to each other's albums, and it made their music better. Like that's exactly what we're all doing right now. And I've had those talks with like me and Fuo jam on that one all the time. I was like, Fuo, you are inspiring me so much. And it's just like everyone's vibing, and it's like I think that is the healthiest ecosystem for artists, to be vibing on everybody else's shit and not comparing or judging or expecting. And we're humans, and that we're kind of built to have some of those thoughts. Personally, as soon as I can get any of that out of my brain and just admire and look, that's what pushes me to do something like this proof of work. And and I had a little drone fly in, and that was a total fucking homage to Alotta. Like it was that thing that he brought to the table that no one else could ever fuck with. And I don't know if anybody could forever, for eternity. Like he is that look. And that's what I take from the artists that are around me, because I try to pay attention. It's much harder these days to pay attention to everybody. Like, boo, it exploded. Like it used to be on SuperRare, there might be 5 new artists a week or something, so you could kind of get a gauge of who's coming in. It's 200 a day or something now. It's beautiful, but can't keep up. So
I think
back then.
So it's funny, the day that we're recording this, which is March 11th, is 1 year from the Beeple auction at Christie's that went for $69 million.
Wow.
And the reason I'm dialing that up now, not only because today is that day, 1 year later, but that was the last time I felt it was possible to keep up.
Yep.
After that happened, right in that range of time, things just exploded. And they had their slowdown periods. They had their peaks and valleys after that, but I never again thought it was reasonable to literally be up on everything that was happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Beeple effect is very real. Very, very real. That was it was actually pretty cool. I had a chance. I was talking to him before he minted, and it was an urgent. I was like, Beeple, I need to tell you some shit. Like homie to homie. I just, because I knew his importance in coming in correctly, and I just had to lay out some things that he needed to be aware of. Some of those public information, some of those private information, where it was like, hey, X, Y, and Z could and probably will happen. If that happens, look at solution A or B to do it. If this happens, think about that. Hit me up anytime. And, I don't want it. I wasn't like trying to consult for the guy, because for a while I was doing a consulting just too much. I need to make art. It was just way too much to do. So, but for him, I was like, dude, homie to homie, like, I don't want shit from you. I just want you to succeed. And he's like, damn, like, he's like, thanks, It was so funny. NFT NYC, I bumped into him, and it was awesome to just have a face-to-face moment with them, because it's just like, this is awesome, but it's not in the flesh. And he looked at me, he's like, you motherfucker, everything you told me came true. Everything. And he's like, how did you know? And I was like, I just been around the game. And he's like, thank you. So and that's all we need, is just really look out for each other and just give advice, be open, and pay it forward. Like hoarding knowledge, I think, is the most selfish thing in the world. And it holds back other people from thriving, literally. So it was the same situation. He didn't need me to help him. He's Beeple. He was gonna be fine. But those things that I knew were like, you lift up the doormat and there's all the dirt. You need to know about and it wasn't anything specific. It was just general. You wouldn't know unless somebody told you. So I just, much love to Mike. He's great guy. And, ever since then, like you said, the whole place just exploded.
Yeah. What a wild ride, huh?
Crazy. Really, really nuts.
But I love some of those names that you've mentioned. You mentioned Alotta Money. You mentioned Fiwo. You've mentioned Beeple. And I don't know, there's some commonality here that I'm trying to wrap words around, but they all collaborate to various levels. I would say Alotta collaborated all the time, like all the time. Fiwo less, but still there. Beeple not much, but I still feel like there's an openness to all of their art. Like I feel like they could jam in those conversations that you're mentioning and be very much part of like a healthy art ecosystem.
Yep, absolutely. And we're in a slower period of NFTs, and at this point, I think this is probably my third. I don't call it a bear. I don't believe in bear markets for art. I don't. That's so simple-minded. That's, to me, is a dumb way of looking at all of this. Like, yeah, maybe people aren't buying, but the art is fucking fantastic. Like, maybe if all the art coming out was shitty, then I would say, yes, we are in a bear art market, but what you see is who sticks around. Okay. And I can tell you, every single cycle, there were people who were killing it when it was hot, but then they disappeared. Sometimes never to come back. Sometimes they come back when it's hot again. And I don't care, but it's a little bit of a barometer check of, how in are you? Like, are you going to be here are you going to be minting when no one's buying? I mean, that's kind of what artists would just keep going and doing. So we're in another one of those phases, especially with this immense onboarding. Like, I don't know the numbers. I don't know if you do, but we got to be talking multiple tens of thousands of artists. I don't know. And PFP projects, like, the amount of tokens created, it's almost akin to the US dollar. Like, it has absolutely, like, exploded.
Well, I think Alex from OpenSea just posted the other day that tokens they're now outstripping websites. So if you go back to like the rise of the internet and how many websites would, explode all over the place, it's now outstripping the number of websites. And he kind of talked about why that was a bad comparison, bad frame of reference. Interesting stuff. And you're right. I mean, the noise, if you look in those places, it's like, how can you sort through this when you're coming into it? Yeah. But ultimately, hey, people will, and there'll be aggregators, and there'll be storytellers, and there will be critics, and certain things will make it through this and have their flags flown for always. I mean, that's how art works.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the game's always changing. You know, what worked 3 years ago absolutely does not work anymore. I mean, it's always evolving. You know, now NFTs have utility. Like back in the day, that was just like, you didn't even have movement. You just had a JPEG, you know? So what we can do with art, I think we're still so extremely early, and it's just up to every single person to distill it how they are happiest. And I mean, even me, like I'm working on utility for, you know, different projects, especially my DI's project, the decentralized mashups. It's a whole new world. And really, like, there's no stopping it's just code. You know, if you code it, you can do it. So it's pretty fascinating to kind of be at the beginning stage again. Like, I feel like it's a new stage of life inside of NFTs where, you know, you're allowed to evolve. You know, you don't have to. Like, I don't have to do anything, but the opportunity is there. And how does that fit for my art? And it's not just, oh, everyone's doing that utility, I'm going to do that too. Like, never been down with running with the pack just because it's like the way you go. So yeah, I'm super stoked to actually kind of get some of that stuff going. And yeah, I've been working with Manifold on some smart contract stuff, and those guys are just the sweetest, smartest people I've ever met. And it's just like, you guys are great. So it's giving power back to us as well, where it's not gated, like, oh, you're going to need a Solidity dev, good luck. You're like, yep. I'm an artist, like, where do I go with that? Like, how am I really going to suss out a dev and do all that shit? And yeah, I mean, I think the community is just really, really solidifying itself a lot.
Agreed. And double down on the shout out to Manifold, Richard Wilkins, the whole crew over there. Like, you know, empowering the creator economy, right? In this era, in the NFT era, I think it's important, and they're making it very, very easily accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to hang out with all you guys in New York, and like, that to me was such a life moment, like getting to be in the flesh and just like share space with everybody. And like, I saw Richard so much that week, and the first time I saw him, I didn't really know. There's online personas, and then there's like, when you see a person, I have a hard time connecting sometimes, like, what do they do? Or like, you know, like, and then like, because he always has the 3D glasses thing.
Yeah.
And he's the 3D glasses guy. And I was like, dude, we're both 3D glasses guys. Like, that's pretty rare. You know, like,
get this. I didn't plan this. This is unscripted, ladies and gentlemen. On the side of my computer, I have a pair of glasses from Richard.
Nice.
And I have a pair of glasses from Coldie. No shit. No other glasses hanging out on the side of my computer. Unscripted. They just happen to hang right on that side. And
you know what? I'm honored you have those. And the other part about it is, everybody needs a pair of red and blue glasses next to their computer. And that was the bane of my existence, because I couldn't show all the shit that I made because no one had fucking glasses. So I had to do the animations. That's really why I got into animating, was because they couldn't see the stereo. So you're one more onboarded stereoscopic viewer, right?
I'm here, and I can rotate. You know what shows it better? Is it Richard's glasses or is it Coldie's glasses?
Oh yeah, and I'll get you some red and green frames. Those actually, red and green are my favorite anaglyph frames.
Nice. Yeah. Little Christmas tone.
Exactly.
Amazing. So hey, so take us through. Let's go back to your SuperRare, because again, 116 is quite a lot of art pieces. Too much to go over one by one. But give us a few more quick hitter highlights of just what comes to your mind as you scroll or as you think about it.
There's a couple pieces. There's one series that I just love that is actually unsold. And it's another one of those where I'm not sure if I really want to sell it, but it's called the Human Nature series. And this project, one of my 3D, my stereoscopic buddies, I found him on Facebook. Okay. Mm-hmm. I was living in my parents' basement. Okay. And I was on Facebook, and it says like people you might want to connect with. There's this old dude with a big white beard and red and blue glasses on. and he lived like this next little town over. It's like, I gotta find out what this guy's up to. You know, you gotta be a homie. Like, so I hit him up. He was the like most skilled 3D comic designer ever. So he would do 3D comic books, 3D posters, and one of his loves was shooting amateur nudes in the like 80s or so, and pretty classy, you know. He would do them like a real photo shoot, and he shot on slide film, like a realist 3D slide, and an 80s 3D photo, like we're talking perms, we're talking like it's a vibe, right? He captured this, and he passed away, and he left me all of his shit, for better or worse. Like,
Wow.
it was a huge gift. And he's like, you're the only one who would ever know what to do with this stuff. He's like, I love you, take it, own it, go, right? So part of that was his entire collection of his stereoscopic, 2 pictures of nudes. We're talking thousands, so many. And from that, I'm looking at these things, like the artist in me is like, what do I do? Because like, I'm not like into nudity in art. I mean, not that I'm against it, it's just not something I've ever done. So I was kind of thinking about how like, and also I want to like, I'm not a misogynist, I'm not just like, I'm not putting porno pictures out there. That's not my jam. How can I honor and make this into art? So I started thinking about it. It's like, well, let's get the faces off the females. Like, let's at least take it out of like, oh my God, that's my grandma, or like some shit, So I was like, okay, we are all this way. Like, animals just don't have clothes on. So like, even as humans are animals. So I came up with this series called Human Nature, where one of them has a cat head. The names of these are so much fun. Cat call. There was a lady, she was set up in the scene with a phone, like talking, and it's a provocative angle of photograph. And I put a cat head on top of her face, and it's all in stereo. You put those glasses on, the cat face is in the correct spot. And so there's cat call, tiger trap, where there's a tiger head, and like, I love that one. And then the final one was called Game Don't Wait, and it's like a double play on game, because like a game animal is like something you'd shoot, but then like, Game Don't Wait, like it's like a hip hop lyric, it's a thing. And that's a zebra head on top of the female that's on this like floral motel bed. It's just so good. So I honored Roger. I just totally honored the guy. This is a collab. And
Wait, was his name Roger?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My OG buddy, Roger May, prolific dude, zany as fuck. We used to, all the light paintings, that'd be another one we could talk about. I did a series of bucket T, like classic car 3D light paintings. So me and Roger would go camping in the desolation, like way out of any light pollution, and we go camping, and we would bring this one, not, we had to go to the car, but like we would go camping in general, bring our LED mag lights and shit, and I would bring my 3D camera, and we'd do long exposure light painting. And there's actually a piece called The One, which is an early-ish one we did. Light painting in the middle of the night. I had a strand of Christmas lights, white Christmas lights. And there's a little like lump of like, it probably used to be leaves, where they just piled up, and over time it became a mound. And we were riffing. We're like, okay, you stand on top of the mound, do a lasso of lights, I'll have sparklers, I'll run around you, and then Roger's like 65 at this time, right? He's a fucking wild man. He's sparkler running. He gets the purple flashlight and he's painting around the base. And I'm up there just trying to stand still because I know I want to keep my body as still as possible. So it's not like this blur. So I'm lassoing this fucking huge strand of lights, getting the torque and momentum going. And the camera could only shoot a minute. So after that minute was over, we back to total darkness, and we walk over to the cameras, and it took just as long for the camera to process the data because it got a lot of light information. So it's the camera's thinking like, what the fuck do I build? It's like you imagine the strain of the camera, like, you motherfucker, like I'm supposed to make a picture out of this, so we don't know what's going to happen. So we're looking at two screens and they have to match. If they don't match, it's a worthless 3D picture. So we're waiting a whole nother minute and we're just jazzed. We're like, what's it going to be? What's it going to be? It shows up on the little screens and we scream. We're like, ah, like every single take we were screaming because it was performance art that is totally experimental. And that one literally was the only take we ever did of that.
Wow.
And that was it. So that one has a lot of meaning. The name alone was like, it's the one, that's the shot. And we moved on. Like, I would have loved to probably do a couple more because there's the cropping. There's a couple like artistically, but it wouldn't have been the same. So, yeah, bless Roger. And that's so I didn't put that together. But yeah, Roger's run alike.
Shout out to Roger May.
Yep.
Amazing, man. Well, we have to talk about trust your intuition. You know how I feel about it. That's my selfish moment in this entire interview. But it was one of the Coldies that absolutely spoke to me. It's one of my favorite phrases in life, one of my favorite beliefs in life. And as I later put together an art piece that you put quite a lot of effort into.
Yeah. I think this is maybe my best composition to date. I don't judge one piece to another, but just the way it came together, the colors, the movement, the meaning, and the opportunity all make it, I guess, like an opus type of piece, something I'm just very proud of that came together. And kind of the backstory was Pranksy hit me up and he's like, hey, I'm going to do this thing called NFT boxes. And, Pranksy is Pranksy, he's just prolific and experimental. And he came to me, he's like, I want you to like lead this off if you want to do it. And I said, well, give me some details. He's like, oh, it's an edition of 500. And my soul quivered. I was like, oh God. Like, up until this point, my highest edition was like 21, so instantly it would probably triple my token count. And I'm a scarcity type of thinker. I've since a little bit evolved, but I like less is more. But I thought about it and I said, okay, if I'm going to do a project that has 500 of them, I have an opportunity to have a message. I have an opportunity to connect with people and not just have some random 3D loop. Like, that doesn't do it for me. I'm a storyteller. I want there to be a theme. I want there to be something that when you're done looking at a piece, you can take away, whether it's just beautiful colors, cool. For me, I wanted something more overt and obvious. And what we were talking about was those billboards that pop up throughout life where it's like, when I don't know, burn my piece and it was like, oh my gosh, I paid attention and I looked at the billboard. So I literally put a billboard, right? And I put trust your intuition. So it's just like, I wanted to knock people over the head a little bit, like, and not saying you have to, but just to know that it's there if you so choose. And if it does come up and you feel a feeling, that's an honorable feeling. And there's so many pieces. I actually did on this last New Year's, There's quite a story behind this one. Did you read the thread about this one?
Which I don't think so.
Okay. Oh, you'll love this one. It was New Year's for 8 years ago. And I was in downtown Sacramento, and I was going out to the bar with my homie, do the New Year's thing. And it's like a family event. Like there's people running around the streets. It's the old gold rush district. So literally gold miner buildings, brick roads, wooden walkways. Like without the new signs, you're still in the gold rush. And I think that there's a lot of like energy from the gold rush that is still there. Like whether it's straight up ghosts in spirits or just like something very historical and like deep energy is baked into those streets. And it'll make sense once I tell the story. Okay, so we're hanging out outside. I'm just people watching, enjoying myself. Kids walking by. There's this couple who walked right by me and walked down to this underground tattoo shop. It's like, oh, cool, like awesome. What an experience. They're having a great time. And that just goes in my brain, right? That little thing was like pop, and I was like, cool, tattoo shop. Then not more than maybe 5 minutes later, I hear like a rattling sound or like a bang. And my first thought was like a kid hit a stop sign, that kind of like sound it'll make. I was like, kids will be kids, Well, about 20 seconds later, I see mothers fleeing, dragging their kids, running. And I was like, that was not somebody hitting a stop sign. That was some shit. Instantly, I figured it out. Like, we got a shootout. So there was shots in the bar literally across a small cobblestone street. This is not, Sunset Boulevard. This was like 50 feet, something really close. So I crouched down behind a wooden trash can, and I've taken science class, and I know that's probably not going to help me too much. I've seen that. So my roommate was crouched down as well. And I looked at him. I was like, Nick, my intuition said, you need to run downstairs to the tattoo shop right now. It literally was like, I didn't feel it. Like just the fucking, you need to fucking run. Like it literally said that. I was like, okay. I was like, Nick, I'm running. I'm getting up and fucking running right now. And it was live fire, right? So as soon as I stood up, I'm 6'3", like it's, you pop up. So he's like, dude, yes, let's do that. So we ran downstairs and we brought this grandma and her grandchild with us because they were down there too. We're like, follow us. And she's like, we were little like angel Sherpas. We're like, come. So we all ran downstairs, and the tattoo shop guy sees us in his little hallway, and he's like, get out, you can't loiter here. And I just had the face of like fear, and I just pointed up. I was like, He's like, okay. He's like, you're good. And we didn't even talk. It was through a glass window. I was like, I'm not going up there. He's like, okay, cool. The shots get louder. There's a whole nother round. There's like 5 more. Pop, 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 pop. Like, whoa. Like, I was not expecting more. And the cops weren't even there. Like, it was like still like, I have so much empathy for war in the world. And my heart goes out to everybody who's affected by war, whether it's directly or indirectly. For those 2 seconds, I was in a war zone. And it was scary as shit. And the cops came. You heard the sirens, the loudspeaker. You knew like shit wasn't going to keep going down. It was safe to get up. So talk about panic attacks. I'm like, whoa, I'm done. Emotionally fucking drained. I got to go home. As soon as I walk up out of that, the tattoo steps, this girl runs out screaming. She's like, someone's been shot in the face. There is like, and there's a trail like into the pizza shop. Like this shit was real. I won't go into all the details. I found out from a live, they interviewed a lady live on TV, and I happened to see it. It was synchronicities amuck. It was nuts how it all played out. it was crazy. I went back to my house and I went to the store to get some beers because we needed to fucking chill out. And there's a live cam from the street that I was just at, and this lady's telling the story. I was like, I would have never known what happened. And she's like, yeah, so the guy shot somebody over there, ran across the street and shot down the freeway, down the walkway that I was crouched down at. So the protection from this side actually became duck hunt with me crouched down, and the guy next to me is who got shot.
Whoa.
So if I didn't run and trust my intuition, I very well could have got super fucked up. So that I just, like on New Year's, it's been 9 years. And I just finally, like, it's an important story. Like, it's not pleasant and it's not fun to even talk about. And I don't do that to like personify, like, whatever, this dirty shit. But it happened, it was real. And for me, part of art is therapy. And it helped me kind of work through just the realization that it happened, that I was still okay, and that my intuition literally fucking saved my life.
Yeah, man. I mean, it makes it an awful lot more real, right? It makes it a lot less theory and a lot more practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So and it's the classic thing, like, you look at it and I kind of hesitate to tell the story because I don't want it to change people's perception of what the piece is.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling this story to my buddy Raphael, and he's like, I told him the story, and he's like, he thought that I baked all these things into the art piece, like all the symbolism, but I absolutely did not. Like, it all worked together and it looked cool. The walkway was much like this series I've done with, I have a theme of people walking down a path. He's like, do you realize that you're like the crouched down walkway that you were like, the guy was shooting on, like, you have a walkway with people, like, and then like the skeleton of the head, like even as an artist, I think that sometimes I don't know if it was subconscious or what it was, but like, I looked at this piece differently. I'm like, whoa, like, how did I embed this symbolism that wasn't even like supposedly supposed to be there?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I'm now blown away looking at this damn thing. So I love this piece, and yeah, I'm glad you do too. I think that that's the thing, is we make connections, and the art is what matters, and the fact that there's a piece of art that you like is the whole point. Like, it's just, like all of these things, I don't make anything to make money. It has zero to do with it. It's a nice bonus, but art is art and it has to be made. And I love doing that shit. It's deep as fuck, and I love it.
And to bring it full circle to someone we talked about a little while ago, that's a lot of money. That's what he always said. He wanted to create things that he would want to put on his own wall and that would make him smile. And in his case, that was the interpretation. So I love that, connecting those two dots right here.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's 100% the exact same thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it makes things, it's easier to get out of your own way and take chances and keep pushing, because that's how we evolve, whether it's art or just life in general, is like, just do what you want to see for yourself. It's almost like the golden rule, but turned back onto you. Like, do unto yourself what it's just like, be the best you can, but don't judge yourself. Like, it's the same thing. Like, when I went to LA Weekly for that interview, my portfolio kind of sucked, just because I wasn't evolved to where I was later. Mm-hmm. But I was proud at that time, and I showed it, and it got me to the next step. And
love it.
And I feel so, like, it's funny where I'm sitting around, I'm like, I have so many ideas that I need and want to do. I really feel like I'm a 10-year-old. Like, there's so much to cover, and and it's fun because we can. And at the same time, I'm alive, right? And especially with Alotta, like it put a lot of things in perspective where we're not going to accomplish everything in life. We simply will not. And that's a true case. When you look at Alotta, but you know what that motherfucker did? He created to his highest potential every single time. He never dialed it in. He never took the easy path. And because you don't know when it's going to end. So it's exciting because, you know, anything can happen at any point, but it's fun to see a pathway where it's like, God, I'm so excited for the future. Like I'm hungry and yearning, and I'm just manifesting. Like, it's just, who knows what'll happen. But I want to do the coolest shit I can for myself, just so, you know, when I go to bed each night, I'm like, yep, you know, you didn't dial it in. Like, just don't start dialing it in.
Don't start dialing it in. You're living it, man. You're living it and you're walking it forward.
So we have a couple more minutes. I want to a couple of these passion projects. Okay,
Go.
Because that's what I love.
Let's make this our lightning round. It's going to be a totally abbreviated all over the place lightning round.
You can throw questions at me while I'm holding up shit. We could get real nuts. So this one is a split cut t-shirt where I had 2 shirts printed, cut, and re-sewn. I had this idea like 15 years ago, but never had a means or a reason to do it. And finally, after a long time, I first sold these shirts for like $60, and they came, but it's funny, it hasn't actually released yet, but I pre-sold these like 2 years ago, and it's the shirt. You get metaverse versions for your avatars. You get a print or an edition that's basically this design. And the coolest thing about it, I did this thing with Meta Factory, is there's RFID tag of some sort, I don't know, or NFC, I forget what the actual chip is called, but there's a Kong wallet in here. So you scan it and it'll prove authenticity. But the real cool thing that I haven't fully baked, it's a lot. I just kind of learned what's baked into this thing. It's a passive wallet. So I don't know the whole details, but you have the private key on the other side, but I can airdrop shit to the shirt.
That's cool.
Right. So like I could just say, hey, every Christmas, you know, whatever, something like, there's a lot of fun opportunity for that. And that's probably maybe April. I'm going to do a drop of those.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it's totally stoked. It's been years in the making, and Meta Factory is just killing it. They've made this dream actually a reality. You know, because there's so many times that technology and the creative process don't align. One of those being 3D concert photography. I was shooting 3D concert photos in 2009, and that whole time I was envisioning someday I will be able to look at my pictures in full color VR 3D someday, right? And that's all it's now. Like, no, it was probably 6 months ago when I was like really diving in with the different apps to use. And I threw in some of my 3D concert pictures, and like I was fucking crying. Like, you know, I'm sure my goggles were a fucking mess, but like it came true, right? Technology, it met the equilibrium, right? So I'm going to start doing my 3D concert pictures in a pretty cool bundle, so you can kind of view it in any type of 3D. So
amazing, man.
Future proofing. And this is a lenticular. You can see that. So that's the Red Hot Chili Peppers that I shot. And it's the thing. It's like, that's the side passion hustle that I was doing. You know, I drove 2 hours each way for 15 minutes of photography, and it was all worth it. It was awesome.
Now it's all worth it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 more things.
Yep.
1, Snoop Dogg.
Yes.
I feel like it was going to be a lightning round topic. So the lightning round is first thing that comes to mind, and if you want to say a little bit of an extra piece, but if I throw that at you, Snoop Dogg, what would you throw back?
unthinkable bucket list opportunity of awesomeness.
Yeah. I kept waiting during the Super Bowl halftime show when they were doing their thing and when Snoop Dogg was performing. I'm like, I'm looking at the back walls.
Yeah. Oh, I was
It's gonna be there. And then the last thing, to tie it all up, the Coldie method. I'd be remiss to not throw that at you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, another experiment, right? Back in SuperRare early days, it was just a bid offer situation. So someone would bid, and at some point the artist would decide that was it. And it's hard when there's two people and they're like, instantly, it's like you're choosing favorites at a certain point. Like, oh, I choose you. It's like, well, why did you choose them? Like, well, it was just enough. It's like, well, what if the other guy wasn't done? So it was just very, very early, and I had to problem solve on the fly just to like make something out of this. So I did what became the Coldie method was, on Twitter, I'd state the reserve. I say, hey, 1 ETH reserve. Then it goes into a 24-hour clock. And that's nothing new, right? That's been around. The difference was I extended a full day. And the reason I did that was because, first of all, the sharks would place bids at a time where they knew the other guy was sleeping, or they would try to do some shenanigans, right? And I caught on to that one. So I was like, nope, a full day. You could go to work, you could take care of your family, you can travel, you can do whatever you need, but just know that there's 24 hours. So it gives you time also to think. It's like, do I want to bid? So I did it, and it worked like right away. It was like, wow, that was awesome. And from the other side, I was testing auctions and the mechanisms of bidding wars. And it was all just kind of uncharted stuff that I was just like, let's see what happens. And for the most part, and I say most part without going into any detail, it was a huge success. There's definitely some whiny people, but that's okay. People like to whine. But the mechanism works, and it was transparent. Once that 24 hours was over, that person wins. And I transfer the token. It was all manual. Sometimes I was setting up my alarm for like 2:37 a.m. with my laptop next to me, where I'd like wake up, like check it, and then there's another thing. I'm, go back to bed. But you had to stay true to it. You had to hit it, because if you waited another 4 hours to accept it, someone could bid, or that guy's pissed off. So I was like, took it very seriously, and it became a thing. Other artists started using it, and then other artists started recommending it to platforms. Like, it was something that the people wanted. I never pushed the thing. Sarah Zucker was a huge proponent of it. She fucking loved it, and it was so awesome. I was like, Sarah, like that's rad. She's like, well, it works. Yeah, like hats off. So do you want to tell the story of how we met? Would this be a good time?
Go, if you have a couple more minutes, let's do it.
Yeah. No, I do. I got 5 more minutes. Do you want to tell it?
I feel like you have to tell it from your perspective.
Okay, I'll do it. I did not know you at all. I'd seen your name, didn't know you. So I got this message from you, which in so many words was a, hey, by the way, we love the Coldie method, and we're gonna use it, or we are. I don't think you had started yet, but it was more of an announcement to me that you're gonna use the Coldie method on your site. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, and dude, I'm really such a kind person, but at the same time, there's branding, because there's a lot that goes into, like, basically, and we talked about this. I was like, dude, I love you, but there's brand sign off. Basically, if Coldie method is part of Artifact, then Coldie approves of this project. Mm-hmm. Right? But branding wise, like, I'm stamped right up there next to you. So it became, I was kind of like, it's something where it was almost like, well, this guy could have asked or something, but he didn't. But I didn't, like, no harm, no foul. But I kind of like pulled the reins back a little bit. I was like, well, who are you? Like, what's the contract? Because I've seen people try to do it and it's not even coded correctly. So then it's not actually even the Coldie method. So we went through a series where we talked back and forth, what was fair, what was the code, how did it work? And, and we're homies after that. It was all good, but we got to like get down to brass tacks and make sure that, first of all, the method worked as intended, because other than that, it's not the Coldie method. And it worked. And I was so impressed. I was like, oh shit, nice. Okay, this is good. And, then I got to see the fruits of the process working for other artists and the platform in general. And it was awesome to see, because I knew at that bidding war, I knew the mechanisms of what made the process work. And you get a couple bidders in there and it's a crank of the wheel, and it helps the artist. It's just market value, first of all, but it worked. And I was so happy it keeps working. So I just honor you for, taking trust and just going for it and using it. I mean, it actually means a lot. It's really quite cool.
Dude, I love the story so much. I will tell you that every time we talk about it, it's a bit of a facepalm moment, because those who know me, like, I pride myself on considering everything, on being like as respectful as I can be. And in this case, there was a reason we were going to use the Coldie method, because I'm like, Coldie's a fucking legend. And like, this is where we have to go with this, because I was seeing the value to the method and it fit with the ethos of Artifacts. And so, we put out the announcement, excited, like honoring the legend Coldie. This is the road we're going to go down. And then when we were talking over DM, and you were like, kind of like, well, hey, dude, I got to know a little bit more. And I'm like, oh shit, I skipped a huge step here. But I think now it's kind of funny that now, like, we've been able to jam. I was able to walk it all the way back and be like, okay, announcement's off. I remember we like took it down. I'm like, no, we're not touching this until I tell you everything. You can tell me anything you want. And then if it makes sense to move forward, we will. And if it doesn't, then I apologize. And it's like, this never happened,
Yeah. No, it worked out wonderfully, like, and we got to know each other like really quickly. Like, how do we each show up? And like, any facepalm that happened was quickly reverted, and it was just homies, and I think that's what it's all about. It's sometimes the way people come together isn't, you don't know what's going to come out of it. And I'm so happy that happened. It worked out awesomely. I call you a friend. Like, getting to meet you in New York was like definitely a highlight. I was like, holy fuck. And you're taller than I thought you would be.
You were taller than I thought you'd. I knew you'd be tall, but I was like, oh, he's taller than me. Damn it.
Yeah, because it's funny. Like, there's a bunch of people who are like taller than I thought. Because not that it matters, but we're all on cameras. You're like, who knows? And there's a lot of towers around me. I was like, wow, like, that's fucking crazy shit. Yeah. So it was just fun to like be in person. So just thank you for, face palming, giving a little humor to this whole crazy journey. It's wild, man. And I'm here for it. I'm so stoked.
It's an honor, man. And then, today, to circle all the way back, this is your origin story. You told some amazing stories. I can't wait to go back. This is one that I want to re-listen to in full and just walk through it again. I feel like we have to do a follow-up at some point in the future, but thank you for spending the time, man. Thanks for being honest and transparent and so damn self-aware that you can tell these stories. And I think be one of those trailblazers in the NFT space.
I appreciate you. And yeah, I'm just trying to do my best.
All right, man. Take care of yourself. We'll talk to you soon.
Cool. Peace.